Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the terrifying, yet honestly kind of magnificent, forces of nature that constantly shape our planet. We mostly just go about our daily lives completely forgetting about the immense, incredible forces at work right beneath our feet and way up above our heads. So today, we're going to break down exactly how these forces operate, the massive impact they have on our world, and most importantly, how we can actually protect ourselves when nature decides to unleash its fury.
And that brings us to a pretty fundamental mystery. What actually happens when the Earth's internal pressure becomes just too much to handle? Because here's the thing. Massive, unseen energy is constantly building up all around us, way before disaster ever strikes. It's literally like a tightly coiled spring just waiting for that exact moment it finally snaps.
Part 1. Forces from below.
So, all that immense tension? It actually starts with the Earth's plates. The crust we stand on, all the rocks, the soil, everything, isn't just one big solid shell. It's actually the thinnest layer of our planet, and it's broken up into these giant puzzle pieces called tectonic plates. And because these plates are floating on a semi-liquid layer called the mantle, they're constantly moving around. When these massive, continent-sized pieces of crust collide, the immense friction causes those violent tremors we feel on the surface as earthquakes.
Now, when scientists map these subterranean collisions, there are two crucial points you need to know. First, the hypocenter, or focus, is the exact spot deep underground where those two plates physically smash into each other. But the epicenter, that's the point on the surface directly above that underground clash. And the really important thing to remember here is that an earthquake's vibrations are absolutely strongest right at the epicenter. From there, the energy spreads outward in a rippling effect, kind of like dropping a heavy stone into a still pond. The further you get from that epicenter, the more the shaking fades.
To truly grasp the terrifying scale of these tremors, which, by the way, are measured on a scale of 0 to 9 using the Richter scale, just think about the number 9.1. That was the staggering magnitude of the massive earthquake that struck Japan on March 11, 2011. When an earthquake of that sheer power hits under the ocean, it creates a massive disturbance, triggering those long, towering tidal waves we know as a tsunami. That single geological event caused extreme devastation and the loss of thousands of human lives.
Okay, let's look at our next geological force, because it perfectly builds on this whole concept of underground pressure. Have you ever watched steam desperately trying to escape from a pressure cooker in the kitchen? If that heat doesn't find a way out, the cooker bursts, right? Well, the center of our Earth operates the exact same way. It holds tremendous heat and pressure. And sometimes that heat builds up so intensely that the molten material inside the Earth is basically forced to rush out through cracks or hollow vents in the crust. A glowing, explosive volcanic eruption is literally just the Earth blowing off steam and releasing that pent-up tension.
So, you might be wondering, what's the difference between magma and lava? Honestly, it's strictly a matter of location. Deep beneath the crust, that boiling mixture of melted rock, gases, and vapor is called magma. But the absolute second that magma erupts and breaches the Earth's surface, its name changes to lava. And this lava, along with thick clouds of ash, can travel incredibly long distances. It's totally capable of obliterating entire cities that fall in its path, eventually cooling down to form brand new volcanic rocks and soil.
Part 2. Forces from above.
Now, imagine a massive, swirling atmospheric beast. That's a cyclone. These are absolutely huge, revolving windstorms. They form when warm, moist air rises and starts spinning rapidly, creating a storm packed with intense, violent winds. Cyclones usually bring incredibly heavy rainfall with them, and they mostly batter our coastal regions. Let me tell you, the combination of those gale-force winds and torrential rain causes absolute havoc, destroying property, uprooting massive trees, and putting countless lives at risk.
And naturally, all that heavy rainfall from systems like cyclones frequently leads straight into our next disaster. When an area gets hit with overwhelming amounts of rain, nearby water bodies simply fill up and overflow right into the surrounding land. And boom, we get catastrophic floods. These floods can completely wash away crops, livestock, and heavily damage power lines. But here's the really scary secondary danger. Flood waters severely contaminate clean drinking water. Consuming that contaminated water leads straight to deadly diseases like cholera and diarrhea. So during a flood, a sudden lack of safe food and drinking water becomes a massive, life-threatening crisis all on its own.
Part 3. The silent scarcity.
Now, in stark contrast to the loud, sudden violence of swirling storms and shaking earth, droughts are defined by a slow, creeping devastation. When a region gets very little or absolutely no rain for a long time, the entire environment enters a state of acute scarcity. During the dry season, people might look to the skies praying for rain, but sometimes even the regular monsoons completely fail. Lakes and ponds dry up down to the mud. This prolonged lack of water absolutely crushes crop production, leading to a huge loss of human and animal life as food and fodder just vanish.
Part 4. The domino effect.
Because nature's forces definitely do not operate in a vacuum. A landslide is pretty much the ultimate domino effect. It happens when mud, pebbles, and incredibly heavy rocks violently slide down a mountain or highland slope. And as this massive wave of debris picks up speed, it causes widespread destruction. The crazy part, landslides are almost always triggered by something else, like the heavy rains of a flood or cyclone or the violent tremors of an earthquake. It's literally nature compounding its own destruction.
All right, let's take a quick breather and recap the root causes of our restless planet's calamities. It's actually pretty straightforward when you look at it. Earthquakes, they come from moving rock plates. Cyclones, strong winds and rain. Floods are from overflowing water, while droughts are the exact opposite, a severe shortage of rainfall. Volcanoes happen when molten magma seeps up to the surface, and landslides are those secondary events triggered by heavy rains or quakes. It's basically a perfect cheat sheet for understanding the mechanics of our planet.
Part 5. Your Disaster Survival Guide.
Look, while it's impossible to completely predict or stop these immense natural forces, we can absolutely empower ourselves with the knowledge to survive them. For sudden geological threats like earthquakes, your absolute #1 priority is avoiding falling debris. If you can, run into an open area away from tall buildings and trees. Stuck indoors, get under a heavy, strong table or bed. And, this is crucial, if you're in a high-rise, always take the stairs. Elevators can easily lose power and trap you. For volcanoes, evacuate to safe zones as directed, pack your food and meds, and stay glued to those official government alerts.
Now, when you're facing the rapid onset of wind and water from a cyclone or flood, you want to follow these exact steps. First, the absolute minute an alert goes out, get yourself to higher ground to stay above the flood line. Second, turn off your electrical and gas supplies immediately. You do not want to deal with deadly secondary disasters like house fires or electrocution. And third, make sure you've secured a first aid kit, your necessary medicines, and most importantly, clean drinking water to fend off those waterborne diseases we talked about.
Fighting the slow threat of a drought is a whole different ballgame. Preparation has to start way before the water actually runs out. We need to be actively planting more trees in vulnerable areas, setting up rainwater harvesting systems, and shifting our agriculture to drought-resistant crops like millets, maize, and sorghum. As for landslides, if you live in a highland area during heavy rains, you have to stay hyper-alert. Listen carefully for unusual noises out in nature. The sound of rocks shattering or trees snapping, those are your early warning signs to evacuate the path of moving earth immediately.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a massive question to chew on. The sources make it very clear that human activities are constantly disturbing the Earth's natural environment. So we really have to ask ourselves, are our own environmental footprints, our aggressive land development, and our massive resource usage actually amplifying nature's fury? Are we the ones making these inevitable natural disasters even more destructive than they naturally need to be? It's a pretty vital thought to carry with you as you look at the world around you today. Thank you so much for exploring the anatomy of nature's fury with me. Stay curious and stay safe out there.